Hello, my name is Michael Portas. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for the Pequannock Township School District. This is our second podcast and what I hope becomes a lengthy series of podcasts providing information not only to our public, but really to the general public that's interested in matters surrounding education. My guest today is our Chief Technology Officer, Matt Shea, and we're going to talk about different matters pertaining to online safety, not only for students, but also for staff and to a large degree families as well. So, thank you, Mr. Shea, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And we're in his office, which would explain the much more exciting decor, which differs quite a bit from my rather bland decor in my office. So first, Mr. Shea, if you could talk to us about your background in online safety.
So my sort of origin story, I started in education in 2007. I came very non-traditionally from the private world. And I noticed very early on that education was a different creature.
Yeah.
And I also realized early on, actually, it's funny, I remember the day it happened. I was driving in my car, I was listening to a podcast. So for those fellow nerds out there, This Week in Tech with Leo Laporte. And the conversation came up on internet safety and online safety and what you can do for kids, which is not the feature of the show, but they got on the topic and they're like, who is responsible for keeping kids safe online? And I'm fresh to education, so I'm like, oh, I'm responsible. But then they kept like talking about it, and as I digested it more, and I was like, well, yeah, but I can't do everything. I have, at the time I had 1,000 students in my district, and so it became apparent really quickly that it's not just me, and it's not just parents, and it's not just teachers. That it's got to be this collaborative community effort to keep kids safe, to teach kids how to use those tools responsibly. Mm-hmm. It's constantly changing and emerging, so having to educate each other. So any chance I have to talk to the students, any chance the teachers do, any chance a parent does, we're all responsible for keeping kids safe online and making sure they know how to use the tech.
Yeah, and I like that perspective too, because it's not an either or. It's either the school's in charge of it or the parents. It's really it flows much more logically that it's us working with the kids for their own safety, working with the staff to reinforce those messages, working with families, working with law enforcement. And law enforcement isn't just restricted to local agencies. We've even had investigations that have gone as far as the Canadian Mounted Police regarding different incidents that have happened online. So I like to, as you were saying, I like to think of it, it's not just distilled within the responsibilities of one person. And that's why I like that we're doing this podcast too, to really share that message that there are ways that we can help keep kids safe. And it's changing so quickly. It's funny, you talk about 2007, that probably seems like the dark ages of technology, where in 2007 I was probably astonished at, wait, I could do this on Internet Explorer? This is incredible.
Right. I think the first iPhone came out in 2007.
Yeah. That was definitely it was groundbreaking, and I'm still figuring out how to use my iPhone. But that's another story. So my next question, this one is more specific, is what are the tools that the district uses, and this is for our district, to help keep staff, students, and the general network safe?
So we have a number of tools, largely on premises, but then some tools that still extend outside our four walls to homes. Of course, here on our network, we have our firewall that protects us from malware attacks and DDoS attacks and, different types of cyber attacks that, protect us inside the four walls. Some of the tools the teachers have, we have a new one called Securely Classroom that lets the teachers manage the Chromebooks in their classroom, manage what the students are seeing, help give the kids a consistent educational experience inside the classroom, and gives the teacher a lot of control of that experience. A piece of that puzzle, again, from the company Securely, is we have also a Securely's filter. Mm-hmm. So that helps us be CIPA compliant. So that's the Children's Internet Protection Act. And so we're supposed to protect children under the age of 18 from mature content. So this helps us, block different categories of the internet that would be harmful to minors. So that's, whether it's porn, gambling, unappropriate aged videos, different things that this filter out of the box blocks. And then we can add our own allow list, block mm-hmm. list of things that educational content that the students need to get to, that the teachers need to get to. Now that filter, now post-pandemic, when Chromebooks started going home en masse, that filter also extended outside the four walls. So even when child is at home, while the child is using our Chromebook and our Pequannock.org accounts, we're still protecting them and blocking that mature content. I say that, but that's the second piece of the puzzle, though, is where we need the parents to help again is, as much as my tool securely filter is doing that at home, if you put a child in their bedroom for 4 hours alone on the internet, they're going to get to some bad things. So that's where we need the parents' help to still really monitor what is your child doing, how much screen time are they getting. We're trying to steer them to educational content, but we need the parents to help reinforce that at home too. But so some of those tools we have inside the four walls, and then we have tools outside the four walls.
Yeah, and as you're saying this, I'm thinking about just the absolute sheer power of these devices that we now have. I heard something last week about how the most updated iteration of the iPhone packs more technology, power than the technology that sent the first person into outer space.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And it fits in your pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me it's astonishing. And I was actually at a workshop last week, and they showed, I think it's called Moore's Law, of how much quicker the microprocessors work and how much more powerful they get. And it's just the incremental gains.
Gordon Moore invented that law and that theorized that law in 1970 from Intel and theorized that every 2 years technology would double. He fixed that theory later to be every 18 months technology would double. So, and if you look at Intel chips alone, he was pretty accurate. So to think 10 years from now what's going to exist is mind-boggling.
Yep. And I think what you're talking about there too, and that, by the way, that was off our script. If you see me looking over here, that's my teleprompter, but that was off the script. But that's why I love that you have this knowledge. But I think that what you're saying reinforces too why it's so important for students to be equipped with an understanding of why this is important. And the tools are going to be outdated probably upon implementation.
I mean, we're definitely preparing students for jobs that don't even exist yet. So that's especially for a kindergartner for the year 2037. I can't even fathom what kind of technology is going to be around then.
Yep.
Let me share one more tool because we just added this one on recently, and this is what prompted some of this conversation. So the district also recently got a new software called Securely Aware. And so what that does is that gives us visibility into student Gmails, their Google Drives, their documents, and it looks for keywords. So specifically self-harm and grief, but also bullying, violence, nudity, different things that are very emergent, very imminent, something that we want to address sooner for that child's safety. And again, that is also another thing that we monitor inside the four walls during the school day, but also 24/7. So if we get a notification on a Friday night at 8 p.m. that a student is on their Chromebook, they're using our account, and they're looking up, what is the most painless way to commit suicide? That's something that we want to know, and we want to let parents know, and law enforcement. We want them to know right away. So that's another tool that the district's using. That's kind of above and beyond our response, above and beyond the scope of the law that we think we should do to try to keep kids safe and help them if they're in distress. So.
Yeah, and just from even looking at childhood development, and this is way off script, but about how younger people generally don't have an understanding of consequences or even the gravity of consequences. And so I think it's really important to help them understand, you might be able to have a workaround to get to a website that's coming out of Russia. Well, okay. So you might be gaining access to that, but what's entering into your device, whether it's your phone or a Chromebook or a desktop. And I think just to have that understanding that there's a reason that these protections are in place. There's a reason there's a speed limit. There's a reason there's guardrails on the highways. And yes, accidents will still happen, but we try to encourage responsible and well thought out behaviors and habits.
So the consequences of their actions, that's a big lesson to be learned, especially at the middle school level. It really starts to hit home, and hopefully they perfect it before they graduate here at the high school.
Absolutely, excellent. My next question, this one actually is on the script, is what are some of the best tools you could recommend to families to improve their online safety? So this is more for when they're outside our four walls.
One of the first sites I always suggest to parents, if you go to Common Sense Media, they do a great job of evaluating, like it's very a very parent and child focused website where they'll focus on the ratings of movies and are they accurate, the ratings of video games and are they accurate. They have different blogs and resources for parents on how do you address internet safety when you give your child's first cell phone. How do you monitor that cell phone? So that's a number one resource that I always point parents to immediately is Common Sense Media. It just does a fantastic job. Yeah. Some other things that I would highly suggest, and again, when I was very blown away in the late 2000s, 2010s, as I was becoming a tech director, and hearing fourth graders say, "Mr. Shea, I got my first cell phone for my birthday," or my dad made me a Facebook account and I'm 10. And I was like, wow, I hope they're having some really serious conversations, because once you give a child a cell phone, potentially with no restrictions, I mean, they have access to 2, 3, 4 billion people on the planet. Yep. So it makes me very concerned that are they using it appropriately? Are there any controls? So on a lot of the tools today, every iPhone has parental controls. I highly encourage parents to look into that. Even Xbox, the PlayStation 5, the Switch has some excellent parental controls as far as controlling, what content the child is able to see, and whether it's, mature content, NC-17, G-rated, whatever those ratings are. So those are really important to look into. A lot of those will even let you control screen time. So I can say on the Nintendo Switch, I'm only going to allow little Johnny to use the Switch an hour a day, 45 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, whatever you set that restriction to. And the iPhone parental controls have that as well. For the Android users out there, Google made their own product called Google familylink. There's some free portions of it and then paid portions of it that let you geolocate your child by their cell phone location. It lets you control that screen time. It lets you control the content or different apps. So if you only want them to use Snapchat 10 minutes a day, you never want them to use Snapchat, whatever that is, that will give you that kind of control. So there's a lot of really good parental controls out there now, and definitely, under 13, I would say to heavily use them. Once you finally get to high school level and you want to let your child have some independence, that's a conversation for you and your teenager. But and when to give a cell phone to a child is a completely different topic that we could talk about for a long time. I've heard some say wait until seventh grade is like the magic grade. I know some parents at third and fourth grade give their kids a cell phone because they want to be able to communicate when they're getting off the bus or they have an activity. And I understand that, but they make like kid-friendly watches that can only call mom, dad, and grandma. Like there's some ways to really limit that technology, so kids just aren't getting too much that they don't understand and can't control. So
yeah, and it's a hard decision. And I say this as somebody my 3 boys are older now, but when they were little, kids see what their friends have, and they want to keep up with the Joneses. And I had a reputation, perhaps surprisingly, of being the not so fun dad, but I wanted my kids to understand you're getting something that has unbelievable power to it, and with unbelievable power, and I guess it's good with the marvel, comes great responsibility. And I felt empowered too by something that Mark Castellano from the Morris County Prosecutor's Office said years and years ago, that if you check your kid's phone and they say, hey, that's an invasion of my privacy, the right answer is, yeah, well, I'm paying for it. You're using my Wi-Fi. I'm paying for the phone. So yeah, I get to look at this. So it could be an awkward conversation, but to me, the end of the day is get through the awkwardness, because you want to make sure that safety is in place. And I certainly didn't want to create a sense of paranoia with my kids. Like, Dad's always watching, but I want them to understand Dad's always watching. So right. To me, that becomes incredibly important. And that's a really difficult one, though, for for parents, is making that decision based on your child, your needs, and how well you can monitor about when to get them the cell phone. And the screen time one too. I could tell you from my parenting perspective too. When my kids discovered Minecraft, it was for a while in my household it was heavenly, because they were quiet for hours. And then I realized it was more or less like a narcotic. Right. And so right. we had to monitor that. And then when we had the ensuing fist fights over who had access to the computer.
When I talk to the students, when I do assemblies and such, I always bring up screen time and that balance, especially the last few years. And that's coming from the tech guy. Like, I have multiple gaming computers at home. My cats have tablets. Like, we have tech everywhere at home. My wife is also in tech. So, but there comes a point where you've got to find that balance. In my last district, and maybe someday we'll try it here, we would schedule an unplugged day. Yeah. No Chromebooks, no smart boards, no cell phones, no anything. Because just to go through the practice of, like, proactively thinking about shutting down. And we should all do that from time to time. And that's, again, saying a lot coming from a tech guy.
Yeah.
But that's, so lately that's a conversation I've been trying to impress upon students and even teachers. It's just, for our mental health, we need to find that balance. And using a Chromebook at school for 3, 4, 5 periods a day, and then coming home and doing Minecraft for 3 or 4 hours a day, it's just not healthy. And again, that's someone that games like a good hour a day when I go home. But I try to cut it off after an hour. So that's one of the things that we definitely are trying to teach the students before they leave here, when they graduate, is what does that balance look like before they go to college, go into the workforce, go and live on their own. So.
And that's great because it creates an element of mindfulness. Because I know during the pandemic response, I became especially tethered to my phone. Where I used to charge it outside my room, I started bringing it into my room to charge because I might get a call or a text from a principal at night or first thing in the morning. And so I had to always be connected. And I realized that's draining. And so I think I need to become more mindful of how many times I participate in occupied boredom, where I'm just sitting on the TV, there's a commercial on, usually for prescription medication. And I'm like, I wonder if there's anything cool on Twitter. And I realized, like, what am I doing? And it's vexing to know that the average human attention span is now less than that of a goldfish. That I found this out at a workshop a few months back. Like, wow, that hurts. That's not good for the species. Yeah. All right, one more question for you, and this one again is from the script. From your perspective, what do we need to do moving forward to encourage mindful and positive online action that leaves a responsible digital footprint? That's a loaded question, a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, there are a lot of layers. We've covered some of that, so I skipped ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
On again, a big focus should be trying to teach a student balance. The students are going to need some of these tools in their daily life. Some of these jobs that we're trying to prepare them for, like prompt engineers for artificial intelligence is now a job. So having someone effectively talk to an artificial intelligence, is something that we're training, that we need to train the students to do. So we're definitely preparing the kids for just a way different world. But how do we do that, responsibly, that they still have a balance in their life? That digital footprint, how do they show their persona to the world by the websites they go to? One of the things I always try to impress upon students is before they hit that send button, the question I always try to ask is, if whatever you hit send on would end up on the front of a newspaper and maybe even read by your grandma, would you like that? Would that be okay? And if the answer is no, maybe they shouldn't hit that send button. So really thinking about that and that everything that they post one way or another, they think it's not permanent, but it is definitely permanent. On Snapchat, they think, it disappears after 10 seconds. Snapchat keeps it for 90 days. Read the end user license agreement because they legally have to. And any police person could go and get a subpoena. So, before they leave that permanent footprint, what do they want that to look like when they go for a job, when they, how they want to appear to their friends or family online. And so they really need to think before they hit that send button. And that's not just a lesson for our students. That's a lesson for the whole community, for myself. That's for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a different professional workshop I went to. Somebody was bringing up that our students should be aware that they should have a digital portfolio. And it's not just a digital portfolio of here are exemplars of my best work as a high school student. But your social media presence should help you get into a college or help you get approved for a job, rather than hinder that. And I think it's a really great challenge for all of us to think about is, what would my online presence do for my candidacy for anything, right. Or even for gaining favor with my parents. Would I want them to see everything that I've posted? Thankfully, I'm very bland online, but it's a really important thing to think about. And that was part of what was framed in the question, is that idea of mindful online action. It's really easy to hit send, especially when you're angry. Somebody gets on that last nerve and you want to fire back. Maybe not.
Maybe sleep on it.
Exactly. But Facebook, for adults, makes it very easy. Somebody posts something that you think is egregiously stupid, bam, you fire right back. Well, once those words are out there, you can't bring them back.
Yeah. I think the world would be a better place if we think before we hit send, is what I'm about to post going to make the world better? And if the answer is no, why are we wasting our energy on that?
So maybe if I invent an online social media platform, which will never happen, I'll have a special function that you hit send and there's like a 15-second countdown, more or less asking you sure?
Yeah.
You know what I bet?
Maybe a 30-minute countdown.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very interesting. One more question. This is not on the script. So what's with the kittens?
So if anyone has seen and met Mr. Shea already at the high school, I have brought kittens to school for our allied health program. So everyone kind of knows me as the kitten guy now. My wife and I have fostered over 100 kittens for 11th Hour Rescue. If you're looking to adopt dogs or cats, although I prefer cats, 11th Hour Rescue does a great job. They're out of Randolph, and they do a lot of events at Rockaway Mall and Roxbury Mall. So you'll see a lot of times on my screensavers, it's cats. A lot of times, like when I'm communicating to the staff, I'll just attach a fun cat picture at the bottom because cat pictures brighten everyone's day. So, So make sure to spay and neuter your cats, and if you need to. You're thinking about adopting to have a love at your home, cats are a great way to go. So, you'll always hear me and my wife pitching cats. Right now, we only have one because we're planning a vacation for spring break, and we don't want to leave too many cats at home, so we only have one cat, but we've had as many as 14, so cool. I don't suggest 14. It's a lot of kittens, but...
Excellent. And I don't like to surprise people, but I couldn't resist with that one. So, so thank you very much to you, Mr. Shea, and thank you so much to Mrs. Noon also for her support on the other side of the camera. She is the human relaxing agent. So if ever you're feeling stressed or a little nervous about being on camera, I highly recommend working with Mrs. Noon, who will set you at ease and do a marvelous job and edit out the part where his phone is ringing. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time around.